My name is AJ. I'm a local public transport enthusiast and advocate that lives in Albury. In this video, I'd like to talk about an issue that keeps occurring on my rail line linking Albury and Melbourne. As my audience watching this video will know, our Vlocity trains keep getting overcrowded, which has led to people having no choice but to sit on the floor of the train. So far, I've been lucky getting a seat. Mind you, I don't really travel to Melbourne much. I only do so a few times a year at most, and whenever I use the V-Line train, I usually book my seat in the reserved section. Without further ado, let's dive into the Albury Vlocity Overcrowding Problem. Firstly, we need to look at the facts. Yeah, I know it can be boring, but I think it's very important to discuss them first. In order to use the train, you'll need to either book online on the V-Line website, or you can buy an unreserved ticket either at the station or on the V-Line website. An unreserved ticket allows you to sit wherever you like, which can be useful for journeys to the next stop or two down the line. If you book as early as possible through the V-Line website, usually at least a few weeks in advance, you would likely be able to choose a seat. As of the time this video is being made, only 2 carriages on the train, whether it be a 3-car or a 6-car service, have reserved spaces, which is always set to 96 spaces available regardless. The reserved spaces are located in the trailing 2 carriages of the train if you're heading to Melbourne from Albury, or the leading 2 carriages if you're heading to Albury from Melbourne. Although V-Line is running a trial to have all seats on the train reserved on weekends and during school holidays on the Albury line, travel to any destination outside the marking zone including Albury requires a paper ticket. Secondly, we now need to look at the numbers. There are 6 special 3-car Vlocity units allocated to the Albury line, which have 1 toilet in each driving carriage and a snack bar in the middle carriage. 1 toilet is a standard toilet while the other toilet is a disabled toilet. The units are numbered VS93 to VS98. These units are currently the only units allocated on the standard gauge Albury line and are the only Vlocities with a buffet installed. Each unit allocated to the Albury line has a capacity of 164 per unit, which doubles to 328 spaces if 2 sets are coupled together. Again, 96 spaces out of 164 on a 3-car train, or out of 328 on a 6-car train are always reserved seats. The train fare currently costs $10 a day for a full fare, or $5 for a concession, though the fares drop a little on weekends. More information on fares can be found on the PTV website. Previously, fares were inconsistent, and for the Albury line it costed approximately $80 for a full fare or $40 for a concession on return journeys, with half a price for both fares when going one way. Thirdly, we need to look at the timetable. There are currently 3 V-Line trains that operate on the Albury line each day in each direction. As of the current timetable dated October 2022, there is 1 service that leaves Albury at 6:45 in the morning, another service at 12:51 PM, and finally one at 5:32 PM. From Melbourne, there is 1 service that leaves Melbourne at around 7 AM in the morning, another service at 12:04 PM, and the final service at 6:02 PM. As of the time this video is made, on weekends, there are also 2 temporary services. One that leaves Albury to Melbourne at 8:45 AM on Saturday, and one that leaves Melbourne to Albury at 2:33 PM on Sunday. These are currently not visible on the timetables, but you are able to book these services on the V-Line website. The New South Wales Training XPT also acts as an express train to Melbourne, though it's currently more expensive than the V-Line train. It currently costs around $50 from Albury, which is a similar price to the previous V-Line fares, and it costs around $10 more to travel first class. Next, we need to look at what we had on the Albury line before the velocities. Previously, the Albury line was served by N-class locomotives hauling insets. From 2011, after conversion from broad gauge to standard gauge, the Albury line was allocated 3 locomotives, 3 power vans, and 3 sets of passenger carriages. From that time until 2017, all the passenger sets were 5 cars long with an added power van. In 2015, a 4th locomotive was allocated to the Albury line, and in 2017 a 4th N-set was allocated to the line. The new N-set was in a brand new livery to match the velocities and the wider public transport fleet in Victoria. In 2017, 2 of the 3 sets on the Albury line lost a carriage to make the new set SN8. The N-type car BN2 was modified to become BDN2 to accommodate a disabled toilet. From 2018, a new power van was made from an accident-damaged Z-type car. From then on, 3 of the 4 N-sets allocated for the line were 4 carriages. For a while, a 5-car set was still in operation until 2020, when that set lost a carriage and became a spare. The N-sets were almost always consistent and, as far as I'm aware, were likely not subject to overcrowding on the Albury line.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way.
Finally, we're now at the part you've all been waiting for. Now we need to look at the history of this overcrowding situation. While it may be frequent because of the fare cap, there were warnings well before that the velocity trains can get overcrowded if the service was supposed to be 6 carriages but must be cut in half because one set became defective and the other was fine. Although even 6-car services can be prone to overcrowding, as some locals have pointed out to me, especially during the Easter school holidays. Not only can it be uncomfortable, but it can also be dangerous too, especially if there's an accident. This type of incident first came to light in September/October 2022 when a train had to be cut in half because of a fault. People were seen sitting and standing where they could, and it likely wasn't a comfortable ride for many of the passengers. A similar incident happened again in December 2022, just before New Year's Eve. That day, the 12:04 PM service was delayed and then overcrowded because of issues. Personally, I visited Melbourne on that day, and the 6:02 PM service back home on that day also experienced overcrowding, but luckily it wasn't as overcrowded to the point where people couldn't find a place to sit. The issue got worse when the fare cap came in. The airline has now taken steps to further prevent this issue from occurring, but in my view, it hasn't really made a difference. As of the time this video is being made, it has been almost a year since the overcrowding on the Albury Vlocity first came to light, and sadly, the overcrowding on our trains is still taking place. Every other week on the local news, the Albury line overcrowding issues are mentioned. Just recently, in my local newspaper, I pointed out the overcrowding when our trains had taken place before the fare cap came in. I'm sure many locals will agree that I'm tired of Albury Wodonga being given the short end of the stick when it comes to public transport. And now, here are my thoughts on this situation. Personally, I believe from the start that the government did not order enough velocity units on the Albury line. I also believe that most of the overcrowding usually occurs in 3-car services as a result of being cut from 6-car services, meaning that there aren't enough spare trains available in case of an emergency. As I said before, there were 4 N-class trains allocated to the Albury line between 2018 until 2022. I also believe that there aren't enough public transport services to and from Melbourne and Albury in general, considering that even 6-car trains are getting overcrowded. Melbourne is a 3 to 4 hour drive away from Albury, so it makes sense to have lots of public transport services to reduce traffic on the roads. If you're travelling to Albury from Melbourne, it's possible to do so only by public transport. The same can't really be said for Albury, where it's next to impossible to travel to Melbourne on a day trip only by public transport. Also, while not as relevant, the car parks at both Albury and Wodonga stations, and maybe other stations on the line such as Wangaratta and Benalla, are overflowing, which means people have to find a space to park their car, often in a location that is undesirable, such as on the grass. So, how can we solve this issue? Well, here are my proposed solutions. First, I'll keep the fares as they currently are. I believe the price generally doesn't make a difference. While the fare decrease increases the demand for services, only really gets busy during a time when everyone is working, such as a public holiday or a weekend. The price used for service doesn't really change the train's capacity. Even before the cap, there was plenty of passengers on the Albury line trains during 2022 and likely during the few years before the COVID-19 pandemic came. Secondly, I would order at least 2 more Vlocity units for the Albury line, considering that we had 4 N-class trains on the line before the Velocities came in last year and services were often scheduled 6 carriages. In my view, considering the ratio of units on the Albury line is 6 3-car Velocity trains to the 4 4-car N-class trains we had previously, I believe we should increase the consistency of the amount of carriages used on every service, so all services can be 6 carriages. I'll also order more units. I'll also up to 6 units for future growth, and thirdly, I'll add 2 more return services each day, considering that even 6-car trains are getting overcrowded. Thirdly, I'll add 1 service scheduled at 8:45 am from Albury to Melbourne and returning from Melbourne to Albury at 2:30 pm, another at around 9:30 am from Melbourne to Albury and returning to Melbourne from Albury at 2 pm. Remembering that Wangaratta and Benalla stations are getting second platforms with the Inland Rail program, so these services look doable in the future. In the meantime, I'd also add several coach services connecting with trains at Seymour to decrease pressure on the line between Seymour and Albury. Lastly, I'll definitely change the booking system a bit. I'll definitely keep the number of reserved spaces to 96, but only sell the same number of unreserved tickets on the website as seats available on that service. With the 5 trains a day and several coaches I said not too long ago, I believe it can prevent overcrowding. Also on the car parking issue, I believe that both state governments should expand the operating hours of the local bus networks and add more routes to the train stations, especially in Albury, which I'll explore more in another video. But in summary, there aren't really any bus services in the early morning properly connecting with trains at Albury, and there aren't really any bus services to Wodonga station, and as a result, the car parks at both Albury and Wodonga, and perhaps Wangaratta and Benalla and maybe Euroa are overflowing. So this last chapter is for the audience. What do you think of this situation? Do you feel comfortable having to stand for 4 hours or sit on the floor on a long distance train? Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Feel free to also comment below your experiences on the Albury line train in recent months. I have also proposed some solutions to the overcrowding problem based on what we have discussed in this video. Do you agree or disagree with my solutions? Do you have any other suggestions? Feel free to comment below. And here's something about this channel in general. Do you think I should make more videos like this? Please let me know in the comments below. I hope everyone has enjoyed watching this presentation video. This took weeks for me to make, and I hope you enjoy your day, and as always, stay tuned for more content, and bye for now.